Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first ever live Think Curiously podcast episode with Chrissy Divine. So last week, we've done a quick introduction into what we're going to do over the next 6 weeks. This week is our first of those 6. We're going to speak about self-doubt and we're going to speak about imposter syndrome. So Chrissy, it was a topic that you had decided you wanted to speak about. So take us back to when that was.
So self-doubt. Self-doubt for me happened at a very young age, Gary. Would have been most of my young life. Would have been school. School for me was first couple of years in school. First year, second year, third year. I remember being a very quiet person. Nobody would say that now, right enough, but I was a very quiet person. I remember my teachers contacting my mum and saying, "Doesn't really speak much. Can you liven him up a wee bit?" So first 3 years, I loved all my subjects. I loved history, loved geography, was really good at maths and stuff. And then I think it was when, obviously, I hit third year, and I kind of came out of myself a wee bit, you know. I think then I started doing a lot of self-doubt where I was plodding along well, but now it's like, maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. You know, maybe I'm a wee bit thick and stuff. Self-doubt for me was always just in the back of the head. Yeah. I don't know, the first 3 years in school, it never really came out. But I got the third year, I was like, what's the point? Sure, I'm not going to go to uni, I'm not going to go anywhere. Self-doubt just took over from I was about 14.
Yeah, I think a lot of that self-doubt, though, can come from early childhood, from experiences maybe when you're younger, when something's happened and you haven't got a lot of positive feedback from it, so you take the negatives. And even as humans anyway, we're naturally ingrained to always look for the negative. You know, it's difficult for us to give other people praise, for example, because because it goes against our own self-belief and our own confidence if we do that. So we always pick out the negative to make it feel better for ourselves, that we know we're better than somebody else. So I think a lot of it can come from a very early age. I know experiences that I've had have come from public speaking in school. I remember having to read a book out in English class. I think it was third year, and I was petrified. Like, I was absolutely terrified. Now, speaking to me now and seeing me do this kind of stuff and seeing me do the Facebook stuff, you would never think about it. And obviously coaching, you would never think that I was nervous in any kind of way doing that kind of stuff. But certainly when I was younger, particularly in third year, reading the book, I remember actually reading it and thinking, I don't understand the words that are in front of me. You know, it was weird. It was like, how can I not understand it? It's just basic English. Do you know what I mean? It's like, just read the words, but nothing was coming out. And then I had another one when I was at uni where, like, I literally froze. I was doing a dissertation, and I remember trying to get the words out, and my mouth was just so dry that I just stopped. And I kept thinking to myself, I'm not smart enough to be here. These people in front of me don't think I'm good enough. And it was just a real kind of like moment where I didn't at the time appreciate what was going on. It was only when I looked back, and I'm sure you're the same. Whenever you were at school, there was times where you thought, well, as you said, you thought you weren't good enough. But then when you look back, you go, well, actually I was. It was because I was too worried what everybody else thinks.
Reading for me, Gary, was the worst. English. Even now, I've got better at reading, but I remember being in an English class, and you know when the teacher would make each person read a paragraph, I used to count down. So he's read that paragraph up. I used to read down, right, this is going to be my paragraph. I know it's going to be my paragraph, right? But what I would do, see any big words, and I couldn't say or couldn't even spell them normally, I'm breaking it down, going, right, that's this, and that one's that, and that one's this. Because I was petrified, because when I used to read out, you know, in school when you get the word and you don't know it, but other people know it, and they all laugh, and you feel embarrassed. Or if I was in English, I always made an excuse like, oh, hands up, need the toilet, because I knew it was coming to me.
Aye.
And then go to the toilet and spend 10, 20 minutes in the toilet. By the time I come back, someone else has read. I just hated reading because, and even in my adult life, I remember.
But you see, just on that, but even before you go any further, but that must come from like a period somewhere else. You know, that must come from like an early stage of that lack of confidence, either as a child somewhere, or, you know, that's what I believe. There has to be something that puts that doubt in your mind to start with, and then as the years go by, it gets progressively worse.
I remember being at Sunday school as a child, My mum used to do Sunday school teacher. I think it was about 4 or 5, and I remember reading and them laughing because I didn't know the words, and I just think that's just where it came from. I don't think it ever went away.
Because I know we spoke about this when you give me the idea of the topic self-doubt. I told you that there was an idea in psychology called imposter syndrome, and I'm not too sure if you'd heard it before, because I don't think you did, because you came back to me and you said I didn't know that's what it was called. But there was some research done on it, and some people may have heard it being called imposter syndrome before. And it was actually done originally, believe it or not, in the 1970s around women's rights in the workplace, because they were realizing all these big high companies that not a lot of women were getting promoted to higher level jobs, and they thought initially it was a sexist thing, but they eventually found out, the more they spoke with them and the research they'd done with them, I think 150 women altogether in original research, they realized it's because they didn't believe in their own ability to go further, so they didn't bother pushing themselves, and that's where the original research came from. But it is funny you say, that avoidance of, reading your book in class that time, get out of the way, and that's one that I haven't used before. I mean, I told you before I come on, like, it might seem weird, but sometimes whenever I'm in a session, a coaching session, I'll think to myself, like, I'll look around me and I'll see the other coaches that are here, or I'll look around and see the level of player that's at, and I'm going, whoa, should I be here? Like, and then after the session you revise back on it and you go, that didn't work. You always look at the negatives, you never look at the positive.
I think in my whole life I've always looked at the negative, never looked at the positives. I think I've always just put myself down. I mean, I could do one good thing and I don't praise myself, but if I do 10 bad things, I just let it take over my whole life. And I think everyone's like that. That's why I love this topic. I don't love the topic as in the sense that I love being self-doubt, but I love the topic in the sense that this relates to everyone. I mean, I'm sure everyone out there doubts something, or has doubted something, or at the moment is doubting something. I mean, any job I go into, automatically self-doubt.
I think you've broke up slightly there, Chrissy. So I'm not too sure if Chrissy's actually going to rejoin us, or if he's lost into the internet of whatever it is. Sorry, Chrissy, you've just broke up there a little bit.
I can. You're cutting in and out, mate.
I think your screen's froze there as well. So unless you want to try and log out and back in again, but so until Chrissy gets himself back in the chat, it's a weird one, because the idea of imposter syndrome, like I said previously, came from that whole research paper in 1970. But there was a lady, or a doctor at the time, I just gave away the story actually. There was a doctor called James Barry, way back when, Napoleon's times, and lived their life as a male, was a doctor in medical services in the army, worked with Napoleon, eventually then found his way to Florence Nightingale. But it was only after his death they actually found out he was female. He lived his whole life as an imposter, because he realised that if he had she had got back in any kind of way, then they wouldn't have gave her the job, because females at that time couldn't do that. So, Chrissy, I just kept that one going there for you and give a bit of history on a famous imposter. So you're back with us. Are you back with us? No. Oh, he's gone again. So anyway, as my story was telling, so that story shows right from that time, way back whenever females couldn't be doctors or surgeons, that was a way around it. But Chrissy, you're back on.
Can you see me, mate?
I can see you and I can hear you.
I don't know what happened there, mate. Must be this Belfast coat hanger signal. I don't know what's going on here.
All good. Now, just going back to that, like the whole avoidance thing, whenever you can quite clearly do something, and you can do it, it's just there's something in the back of your mind telling you hold back, or you can't do it, and you talk about that time going to the toilet, when you're reading in school and stuff. But I guess that's the thing everyone can relate to, is the fact that everyone has felt it some way. And I know Jordan's came on there, and Jordan said the exact same thing when he's at school. He had an issue with reading out in school, and it's not just this thing doesn't, self-doubt just doesn't affect one person or one type of person or one sex or one ethnicity. It affects everybody.
Yes, mate. I mean, it affects everyone, but I think what happened is people take the piss of other people for it. I mean, and I think that's when the insecurities and the fear comes. Like, from being at an early age at school, there's people who are better readers than me. I might have been better at a subject than them, but I would have never have made it aware that I was better at a subject than them. Like, you don't do that to people. But I was in certain subjects and it was just, people laughed. They don't get how people can think it's funny that other people maybe aren't as capable as them. And when they laugh at you at a young age, for the rest of your life, it just affects you. I'm well in my 30s now, mate, and I'm still sometimes those things from my childhood, as you said, it's had to start from somewhere. It still affects. It still creeps in.
Yeah, and that's the key is though, is that understanding that it's something that you are aware of for a start. And when you do have that little bit of self-doubt, like, how do you push yourself over those boundaries? And if anyone's listening and wants to interact with this, like Jordan has done, it would be great to hear that. If you're confident enough doing that, if you're not, totally understand. But if you would, I like and comment and share on it. Like I said last week, it helps us beat the Facebook algorithms and gets more people interested and more people interacting with it. So just on that point though, in terms of having that moment of self-doubt, like, I still do it. I said this to my friend Darren last week about when I'm going to post something on Facebook for the podcast. Like, I've done this plenty of times, and just before I do it, like last Friday, not Friday past, the Friday before that, it was the worst ever. Like, I had 3 videos to put out, and I just completely, the first one came out at 10:30, and I was supposed to put it up at 7 o'clock. It took me 3.5 hours to talk myself into putting it up.
But that, we all do stuff like that, isn't it? I mean, you've been doing this show for a good while now. As you said, it's the end of last year. I'm sure there's times you're like excited, oh, I'm posting this video, I can't wait, and you just post it. But then there's other times you're thinking, I don't know how people will take this video, or I don't maybe know. It's not that the video is good enough or the person in the video is good enough, but you could be going, maybe I could have did a wee bit more, or maybe I could have did this in the video, and and I think we all do stuff like that. There's times where we can't wait to maybe do something, and we're so positive and we're so excited. But then there's other times where we're like, I don't know if I should do this, or I don't know if I'm ready, or I mean, I know I'm talking about myself at times there too, but it's great that you're showing examples for yourself there. So, I mean, I'm sure 9 times out of 10 you'll just put a video on like that, no big deal. But you'll get days, Corey, where it'll just be.
You see, the other thing about that whole idea of self-doubt and imposter syndrome is that we get a self-inflated understanding of our reputation, right? So you hear it plenty of times where, you know, you hear people talking about, oh, such and such is a good footballer, and you've asked them how many times you've seen them play. I've seen them play once. So that one time they've seen them play, then automatically give them in their own mind as a reputation of being a good player. So then the next time that person plays and has a bad game, they're thinking about the perception somebody else has of them. So they almost play up to that reputation. I do it with coaching. Like, I know people have seen me coach, people that haven't seen me coach, tell me that they think I'm a good coach. It's only because other people have told him that. And then whenever that person's in the sideline, I'm thinking, well, he thinks that I'm good, so I've got to show him that I'm good. And then it just becomes unnatural. And that's when the doubt comes in, because then you can't live up to the reputation that you almost set yourself.
Yeah, I've seen that growing up in Korean, where a lot of friends I grew up with got into football in Korean and stuff, and maybe someone go to me, oh, we see this wee guy here, he's lethal. Oh, I've seen him played one time before, he's brilliant. And you're sitting there watching going, really? You've hyped this wee guy up to be, or hyped this person up to be so good. Then when I'm watching him, I'm going, is this the same person? And, you know, that happens, as you say, same with the footballer, you're coaching, and you've maybe got someone's opinion of someone once, but then you see it, your opinion could be completely different. And, you know, maybe your doubt then comes in, you're doubting that person, you're going, hold on a minute, you said this, but I see this.
Yeah.
And it happens.
Just a shout out to Jordan Greer. He's just commented there saying that he had quite a hard time during his childhood. to do with his stutter and stuff, and that he's now in a place where his own self-belief is his biggest strength. So it came from a position where maybe that was something that other people picked up on when he was younger, but now he believes in himself more and more because of that strength. So big shout out to Jordan. Thanks for sharing that with us. The other thing I want to pick up on too, Chrissy, what you said there, the funny thing about it is, and I don't know about you, like with your job and stuff, but see, the more people praise you, the more success, if you want to call it that you get. It's almost like the more you doubt yourself, because you're thinking, I don't want people to find out that I don't think that I'm as good as what people tell me I am.
Yeah, I think in life, the more success you have, or the more well you're doing in life, the more you want to hide those other things. Because, I mean, I could be doing really well in life, but I don't want people to think I'm stupid and I can't read and I'm not great at these things. So you kind of hide those things, or you kind of avoid doing those things.
Yeah. Was it for you, when you were younger, or even when you're growing up, or what happened to you in the last 7-8 years? Do you think that played a big part in it, that self-doubt, that almost brought on depression in many ways for you?
See, growing up where I grew up, obviously in a housing estate, I mean, the pressure's always on, I think. I mean, it's great growing up in a housing estate. It's great growing up around people. I had two brothers who were really strong. I don't just mean physically strong, mentally strong, two tough guys. I came along as a child and everyone was like, well, he's going to grow up to be like his brothers. He's going to be too hard. He's going to be a hard man. He's going to be tough. But my brothers obviously, were out and fighting and doing whatever stupid stuff you do as young teenagers. And my mum kind of wrapped me in cotton wool. And then I didn't grow up to be hard men like them. And people were like, oh, he's a softie. He's a pushover. And it was like expected to grow up like two tough brothers. Oh, here's going to be another one. And then when you don't work out like them, or you don't turn out like them, or maybe you were wrapped up in cotton wool, people then look at you and go, doubt you. And then maybe that doubt comes into yourself. Yeah,
that self-doubt is, as you're talking about there, other people doubting you, then that comes part of your own doubt. Do you know, I think, and this is my own personal experience, is that when you doubt yourself, or when somebody else doubts you, you almost put more effort into proving it, to proving that you can do it. But then all that work, all that process does is makes you doubt yourself even more. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's a weird paradox.
I remember trying to be like tough in school. I remember trying to be hard in school, and I'll be honest, I'm not a fighter, Gary. I never probably will be. I would rather laugh and enjoy life. Whereas my two brothers were tough nutheads, and when I went to school, nobody messed with them. When I went to school, it was like, I have to prove myself here. I have to be a tough nut. And you know what? It just backfired. It just made me doubt myself even more. I'd be like, I'm not like my brothers. I'm not strong. I'm weak. I'll never be like them. And that I think that doubt's kicked in from a young boy, because I'm looking up to two older brothers who are tough guys, and I'm going, I have to live up to that. And I never did. And then it made me doubt all aspects of my life.
Yeah. Shout out to Jason Eggers, just commented, saying, Chrissy, that he knows you well from working with you before. And he says that you're one of the kindest and most down-to-earth guys he knows. So there you go.
Thanks, Jason, mate.
But just picking up on what you talked there, in terms of having that overshadow of a brother there doing things, and having family around you that potentially have a different level of expectation on you to then go and achieve. The one thing that I find quite interesting is that, you say, for example, you see it all over the place, like where the higher you go up, and no matter what it is you do, whether it be work or football or sport or anything like that, there's a higher level of expectation that you're going to have all the answers, right? Because you've got this badge, or because of that level of experience, you must know everything. And then whenever that moment comes in where you don't know something, and you have to then go research it, the question becomes, are you big enough to go, you know what, I don't know what you're talking about, let me go find out? Or do you fabricate some story just to make yourself look like you're knowledgeable, to feed back into your own self-confidence and your own ego, and say, you know what, I want to show the world that I know everything? Or do you let the that kind of like pushes the self-doubt out of the way when you make the answer up? Whereas if you go, you know what, I don't know the answers, that makes you a bit more vulnerable.
I think there's aspects in our life where at times we bluff it, don't we? I think there's times we bluff it, because I think if you're going through a patch in your life where self-doubts really took over and you're struggling, but as you say, Gary, with your football and your coaching, and say maybe me, like I've got a good job or I'm doing well in the job or something, and I'm getting praised, you're brilliant in your job, you're doing well in your job. Oh, we think you're brilliant. You've got a full-time job, or you're doing well in this or that. You bluff something sometimes. Maybe not. I'm not telling my work I bluff and work. I don't. But what I mean is, in life, we bluff sometimes because I think you want to keep that ego. You want to be like, well, I know everything. I'm all right. I don't want self-doubt creeping in here. But then sometimes I think we let the doubt creep in and we go, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer. I'll find out.
But society has us ingrained that way, because you know the quote or the saying, of fake it till you make it, right? I read some interesting research around that, not that phrase, but around sort of social quims, if you want to call them that, social phrases that people use every day and the reasons why we use them. And one of them is the fact that we use this idea of fake it till you make it because we don't want to show people that we don't know. So we just get on with it. Like I said earlier on, we just get on with it and we just make it up as we go along. And then eventually get to a situation where you can't make it up because you're found out. And it's like, whoa, where do I go from here? So there's I think society has us ingrained in many ways to hide the parts that we don't know, smooth them over, and then just sort of move on and hope that nobody else finds out. I think one of the biggest things you can do is we talk about reflection, right? So me and you spoke about reflection before, but in sport anyway, you talk about reflection, looking about what you can improve. And the majority of times when you think about that, you always think about your weaknesses. That's the way we're told in school. What weakness do you have that you need to improve on? Well, how about we look at our strengths and how do we make them stronger rather than looking specifically at the weaknesses? Because if you focus too much on the weakness, the only thing that's going to happen inside your head is you become focused on that, and it overtakes you, and all it becomes as a negative connotation to be attached to whatever situation it is. You know what I mean? Look for the positive, look for the strength that you have and build your strength. And hopefully that helps you overcome that self-doubt.
I think that's a good point that you're making, Guy, sometimes I've thought about it that way, and sometimes I think what will happen there is people who's maybe always thought about their strengths and their positives and their good things and have never really ever looked at their weaknesses, right? If they then shift attention from their strengths to their weaknesses, they become then obsessed by trying to fix their weaknesses and lose sight of the positive and the strong things that they already have. So you're not working on your strengths. You're trying to fix your weaknesses, but then, as you say, them strengths aren't getting attention, are they?
And that's the thing, though. That's the thing, is that when you do that reflection, you always focus on the negative because you want to make the weakness stronger. But it gets to the point where that negative is the only thing you can think about. It happens. I mean, I'm going personal experience. That's all I can speak of. I remember doing my B license assessment up at the Dub, and the way that it goes is if you're on next, then you miss out the session before you, so that you get time to prepare. And I remember standing watching it and looking at the guys that had been before me, and then looking at the guy that was on, and I was going, not a chance. Not a chance have I nailed this. I have sat and I have rehearsed it and I know what I'm going to do, but there's no way I can coach at his level. And then the problem with that is you start comparing, and when you start comparing, then you're always going to see yourself in a negative light when you start to compare, because when you're not happy with what you say or what we come up with, you find something else. Okay, well, I might be able to project my voice better, but his coaching points are better. Or I might be able to have a better position on the pitch to see the play, but yet he's a better way of communicating with groups of players rather than individuals of players. And then all of a sudden, the negative always is the thing that keeps to the fore. So I suppose the only thing I could say to you then is, in the past, how have you overcome that? Is there anything you've done to overcome the self-doubt?
Things like that. You see you in that situation there. So when you're in that situation, and you're like, well, he's maybe better at group, but I'm better at individuals. Do you know one thing I do there, I always find with stuff like that there, is I ask myself, well, how do I know that they're looking for what he's better at than me? I mean, you're out there and you're coaching, right? And I do exactly what you've done. You'll watch someone else and you go, Jesus, he was great, wasn't he? Man, he was amazing. I know I'm not going to be that good. But then you don't know, are the people that's watching you to give you your license, are they actually, what he's done, is that what they're looking for? They may actually be looking for what you're doing.
Yeah.
You don't know. So sometimes we have to believe in ourselves and go, okay, well, so-and-so might be better at this than me and better than that at me. But maybe I bring something to the table too. Maybe there's something that they're going to look at me and go, like, you might go out and do that training session, you might come back from it and go, that was rubbish, your man was far better than me. But you don't know. Maybe when they looked at your session, they might go, well, he's done that, but your other boy didn't do that. You know what I mean? There is things within us that we have that maybe others don't have, and there's things within others that we don't have.
I'm going to slightly digress a wee bit, but I'm going to come back to that point. Luck. When people wish you luck, right? Here's the one thing that gets me. I did a lot of thinking about this one recently. When people wish you luck, what does it mean? Does it mean that they wish you well? Because obviously that's what it's intended to do, right? But my understanding of that is that luck is something you can't control, right? So if you think that your success, where you've got in life or your career or whatever it is you attribute success to, if you think you've got there because of luck, then you devalue all of the work that you've put in to get yourself into that position, because it wasn't luck, it was the work and that graft and the sacrifice and everything else that went into it to get you to that level. Now, fair enough, there might have been opportunities that came its way that might have looked lucky, but then if you look back on it, you go, well, actually, no, it's not, because I met him and I spoke with him and I done this and I done that and I connected with that person got me in touch with them, and that's the reason why I have where I'm at right now, because they've seen what I have. And where I come with that is that when you look at your successes, like in your life, if you take your relationship, for example, your marriage, right? We spoke about this. You wouldn't say that it was lucky that you met Kira, right? Because there was other things in the background that happened that then made you meet her in the pub that night, right? And that would be a big success for you to be married and have that relationship with her. But if you looked upon that as, no, you know what, that was pure luck, then that increases your level of self-doubt, because then you think, well, if it wasn't for the luck, we wouldn't be together, which isn't true.
See, I believe in meant to be's, and I believe in it's hard work too, grafting. I think when people say to you, I've always thought about this too, I think I just obsess about things. People say to you, good luck, because it's a saying, good luck.
Yeah.
But if you're going for something that you've worked hard for and you get it, and they've said good luck to you, are they saying to you, good luck as in the sense you'll flip this? You know, if you're lucky, you'll get this. But it's not luck. It's hard work. I mean, if I go for an interview and I put the work in, or you go for a coaching and you put the work in, I think it's a saying, good luck. But lucky isn't really define what you've done. So that whole time you build up to go for your B license, you put all the graft and all the work in. If you get it, you've deserved it because you've worked for it. It's not luck. I mean, I wasn't lucky when I met my wife. You weren't lucky when you did your coaching. It's hard work and graft, and it's. I also think things are meant to be as well. I think if you put whatever you put in is what you're going to get back. And I think people, as you say, you know, when someone goes to you, Gary, good luck in your B license, mate. It's not luck, mate. It's you work for it. And if you get it, you deserve it.
Well, this is where I'm coming from. The reason why I attribute that is because one of the findings from the original research paper in 1970 in the imposter syndrome was the fact that a lot of people who find it, or who experience it, I should say, will attribute the success that they have or have gained to something outside, so like luck, or because somebody else put the work in before they got there, then they took over the company became a big hitter, and therefore they're getting all the praise. But it wasn't actually them, it was somebody else. And they will attribute all of that to external influences, things outside their control. Well, in fact, if you looked inwards and you actually said, you know what, no, like I see Jordan Moffat on there, he's just put a comment. I remember sending you a good luck message, Gary, and never getting a reply, never again. But with his football club, for example, it's not lucky that he's grown up to where he's at. It's not lucky that he's met people that he's met on that journey. It's by hard work and by graft. But not digressing too much on the topic that we're talking about here, if you were to attribute all the successes that you have to something outside of your control, then you're always going to think that you're not good enough, because you'll always rely on luck, right? Or you'll always rely on somebody else getting you into a situation where you can't be successful. And I think that's what it comes back to. It comes back to looking at your own strengths. What is it I'm good at? And how do I get them better? What do I need to do to make them better? So that's just rounding off that whole luck chat, because I know we kind of went off on one there.
No, it was good. I enjoyed it.
But just to wrap us up, just to finish off, if you think about where you were at and where you're at now, we all still get self-doubt, right? We all still have those moments where we think, I don't think I want to do this, or I don't think I can do this. But if you think about where you were at way back then as a child, what you've came through over the last 7-8 years to the position you're in now, how often would you say you feel that self-doubt? Is it daily? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? Is it when you do certain activities?
I think it's when something new comes along. So like, apply for a job, go for the interview, smash it. And I'm great in interviews. I love them. Start a new job. And then it's like, start the training and it's like, boom, can't do this. It's only when something new comes along at the moment where I'm a wee bit unwary about it. As a child, and even over those 8 years of depression and suicidal thoughts and all, my doubt was daily. My doubt was, you're not a good enough person. You're not going to be good enough. You're not going to find anyone. No woman's going to want to be with you because you're not going to be good enough, and you're not going to be able to be good enough for them, and you're not going to be good enough for your family and friends. And every day it was just a struggle of doubt myself every day.
Yeah,
and then it got to the point where now it's like there's days I'm like, I know I'm going to be good at this. I put the work in, but then if something new comes along, so say I'm doing a project, and the project's going well, and then there has to be a change to the product or the project, but I don't know what that is. I've never worked with a certain, say, system or something before. I'm going, I'll not be able to do this. I've never done this before. But rather than giving it a go, but that only happens now and again now, but most of my life.
But do you think, just when you were speaking there, actually, sorry to cut you off, do you think that's your ego then? Do you think that's your ego saying, I don't want to get bruised, so I'm not going to try this new thing because I don't want to be in a situation where I'm not good enough? I might as well tell myself I'm not good enough so that if I don't do it, nobody can tell me that I wasn't good enough. Do you know what I mean? It's a weird one.
A lot of my life, it was an ego thing that, well, I'm not going to try that because I'm going to look stupid. And then someone's going to say to me, told you couldn't do that, you're stupid. So, I mean, say you have people's perception of you of, well, he's quite good at this and he's quite good at that. Well, why should I go outside what I'm good at? Because if I go outside that and I fail, people are going to go, told you you're not all as cracked up as you are,
Just a few more minutes and I'll finish this off, but we're streaming across a number of different pages on Facebook, you see, so I'm going through them all here to see who's been commenting. And Rich Boyle has commented on It's All in My Head Facebook page, and he said that he's had self-doubt not only when he's alone but when he's in a public eye, and he's great at looking like believing in himself and believing his abilities. But I also highlight early my weaknesses with others so that they don't judge me. I fear being told I was not good enough, and then that justifies my own self-doubt. Then in retrospect, I was not good enough in the first place. So that's 100%. Yeah, I totally get that, where you have a perception of yourself and others have a perception of you. And if you don't live up to that perception, then all of a sudden that doubt will just increase even more. So great point. Rich, thank you for sending that in. So Chrissy, we're just going to round off because we've been blabbering on here, I think, for nearly 40 minutes and people might get tired by now. But you can see across the bottom of the screen that Chrissy's episode and I spoke about Rich there, Rich's episodes, both available on the Think Curiously podcast. Get it across all major streaming platforms, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Deezer, Stitcher. I think actually we're on Audible now as well, which is all good. So anywhere you want to get it, you can get it on there. It'd be fantastic if you could help us spread the word here by liking, commenting and sharing this video. We will repost this in a few days' time once I've got it edited, and we'll stick it up on YouTube. We are going to come back next week and talk about a separate topic with another 5 topics to go. We're going to try and do this over the next 5 weeks just to keep the interaction. Thank you ever so much for everyone who has commented and interacted so far. It's been really great. That's Rich and Jordan. I think Jordan Gray was in there and Jason. So 4 or 5 people so far, which is fantastic. Chrissy, just to finish us off, I'm going to hand it back to you for closing words and remarks if you've got any to make.
Yeah. First and foremost, I just want to thank everyone who's commented, liked, and joined us tonight. thanks to Gary as well for having me on. Just quickly to go back over what Rich said there, Gary, I think that happens. I think there's different people. One will either just tell people this is my weaknesses so people know it, or two will hide it and try and live up to a perception of who we are. I think that's a fantastic thing that Rich said. It's quite true. You'll get people it's either one way or the other.
Yep. Awesome. So thank you once again, folks. Like I said, I'm going to repeat myself. If you could like, share, comment, that would be fantastic. You're going to get it across all of our socials as well. And the whole idea, like we said last week, is just to give this platform an opportunity for Chrissy to talk about areas that that he thinks are relevant. It still is wound up in his story that's, again, he told 2 or 3 weeks ago on the podcast, and the feedback has just been phenomenal, not just from your story, but I see Rich was on there too, and Rich has got some great feedback about his, and it's really nice to see that. So thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
Bye, guys.